So, we have a lot to talk about. First of all, up next, I'll be getting into the COP29 climate event that just happened, as this election victory throws a lot of the global agenda into disarray, and every corporatist the world over is going to be looking for ways to subvert the US populist agenda, so we got to keep an eye on them. But first, a very quick recap of the 2024 election. Overall, it was a decisive moment. The Republicans won the presidency, the Senate, and the House, the highly coveted trifecta, otherwise known as a unified government. And hopefully, real change can happen now. The establishment won't give up though, and we are going to witness a lot of crazy stuff over the next 4 years. You know, there's a difference between internal polling and the polling we see in the media. The media is really just there to lie to everybody and keep their hopes up, but behind the scenes, the establishment knew what their chances were, all along. I believe they were trying to hedge their bets and were really hoping to gain some ground in the Senate and the House. In fact, they were planning on running an obstruction campaign for the next 4 years, same playbook as 2016. Luckily for us, that did not pan out, and I don't think they have enough rhinos in their back pocket to keep it going, and we'll find out about that pretty soon. But there was a massive shift to the right. Across the country, damn near every county went red, even my home state of New York. From New York to the Rio Grande Valley, across big cities like Miami and San Francisco, really all of California, pretty much everywhere, a massive shift happened, which are optimistic signs that we're moving on from clown world. Now, in terms of the presidency, I cannot stress how important it was to get both the Electoral College and the popular vote, as their plans for Resistance 2.0 really depended on the regime winning that popular vote. Their agenda of lawfare and sowing discord kinda depended on it, to be honest. For example, mass protests. It's kinda hard to push the narrative of illegitimate president or threat to democracy, while you are actively ignoring the results of a democratic election. It's glaringly hypocritical and idiotic. Even the most brainwashed of people cannot muster up enough cognitive dissonance to rationalize that, right? One of the main strategies they wanted to employ was abolishing the Electoral College and shifting the nation toward a direct democracy. There's multiple clips from CNN and MSNBC trying to set that narrative up. However, let's take a look at what the Council on Foreign Relations had to say. And I quote, "Even if Trump wins the count in the Electoral College, he is likely to lose the popular vote. And so the more fundamental charge lobbed against him will be that he does not represent the general will of the people." End of quote. And yeah, well, that strategy seems to be dead on arrival. But that was the plan. They would have used that excuse to fuel the riots and protests. The media would have called them pro-democracy groups. However, I don't think they have the juice for it anymore. But there was one really interesting aspect to this election, pretty damn ironic too. Let's talk about the threat to democracy narrative. So, in exit polls, people did actually claim that a threat to democracy swayed their vote. However, the majority believed that Democrats were the threat to democracy. Ooh, that narrative backfired. A chef's kiss on that one. Which brings us to this. Want to know what other plan of theirs might be dead on arrival? Well, the Jamie Raskin disqualification plan.
It's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025 to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified, and then we need bodyguards for everybody and Civil War conditions.
Yeah, with such an overwhelming victory, it seems like that's going to be real hard to pull off. I guess on this one too, we'll find out soon enough. Again, as I said, they aren't just going to pack it in and give up though. Political strategists and pundits have already been trying out new euphemisms for seditious conspiracy. Here's one, they call it democracy between elections. Yeah, essentially they're just calling on the deep state apparatus, including the media, and of course people within federal agencies to slow roll compliance with Trump initiatives, either by using propaganda or putting their thumb on the scale behind the scenes, actively trying to defy the will of the people. However, they've actually gone one step further. The shadow government is now openly pitching a shadow cabinet with Adam Schiff as Attorney General. These people are freaking crazy.
If Trump attempts to weaponize the justice system against his political opponents with Matt Gaetz at the helm, we could see incoming Senator Adam Schiff as our shadow Attorney General, arguing against replacing our independent prosecutors with Trump loyalists. If Trump seeks to eliminate the Department of Education, Congresswoman Johanna Hayes, a former Teacher of the Year, could step up as Shadow Education Secretary to loudly defend public education in the United States. If Trump orders Marco Rubio to hand Ukraine and much of Eastern Europe to Russian President Vladimir Putin, Congressman Greg Meeks, as Shadow Secretary of State, could be a strong voice in support of maintaining international relationships and protecting democracy at home and abroad.
So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. They're openly trying to form a shadow government to oppose and counter a democratic vote, and it's right out there in the open. So yeah, tell me again, what was that about a threat to democracy? Which brings us to one of the biggest announcements yet. Elon Musk and Vivek have been put in charge of D.O.G.E, the Department of Government Efficiency. And I really can't help myself. I'm pretty excited about this one. There's one thing we have to keep in mind. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We'll never get a chance to do something like this again. We have one shot. They have to rein in the federal bureaucracy and root out the corrupted rot in D.C. very quickly. Otherwise, they're just going to have more time to come up with different ways to protect and insulate themselves. If D.O.G.E does not act decisively very quickly, and God forbid, the corrupt machine outlasts them, well, the moment they have a chance, we'll see a consolidation of power unlike anything this nation has ever witnessed. Now the plan to cut the government down to size is set to be finished by the 4th of July 2026. As Trump said, it would be a perfect gift to America on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And I agree, rather symbolic, don't you think? So I feel like I'm repeating myself a bit, but they're not just going to go gently into that good night, you know? Lots of crazy people to contend with. Crazy people with institutional power, at least for the time being. But I'm not being hyperbolic. They are truly insane. For example, CNN reported this about federal employees, and I quote, "We are in some new dystopian hellscape. We are absolutely having conversations amongst ourselves about whether or not we can stomach a round 2, end of quote. And yeah, you can handle it, alright? Just please pack up and go home. You would save us a lot of bullshit if you did that. Just quit. Some employees who lived through the first term say they are experiencing PTSD. And apparently, that's a glimpse into the mindset of 2 million federal workers. But can you believe they're claiming to have PTSD? As I said, they're crazy. One of the big propaganda narratives is elect Trump to get revenge on the government. And in a matter of speaking, you're damn right. I'll explain in a second, but first check out this clip from CNN. I know, I'm sorry to put you through this, but it's important.
A couple things. Number one, if I was over in Tehran and I had just hacked and tried to assassinate Donald Trump and now he's fixing to take over the United States military again, I'd probably be a little worried. On the domestic front, there's a political science term for what Republicans did this week. It's called a country butt whooping. And they have a mandate to govern. And one thing I want to see them do is get a handle on the bureaucracy. They're meeting at the Pentagon right now about possibly thwarting Donald Trump. You've got a rogue FEMA employee out here. We're not going to give aid to people with Donald Trump signs. The bureaucracy works for the people. The people elect the leaders. And I want to see Donald Trump follow through on this idea of taming the federal bureaucracy.
Schedule F.
Okay.
Al Gore loved the reinventing government.
Bingo.
God bless you guys. I hope
Yeah, good luck. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
So did you hear that at the end? She laughs and says good luck, in reference to reining in the rogue government. And I think the response is pretty telling. They believe that the bureaucracy can withstand the storm, and in turn will even celebrate seditious conspiracies to stifle real change. You know what? Check this out. I came across a video where someone replaced our democracy with our bureaucracy. And once you hear it, everything starts to make a little more sense.
If the Democrats fail, it might be the end of American bureaucracy.
Our bureaucracy really is in fundamental peril.
The foundations of American bureaucracy under attack.
They want to destroy our bureaucracy.
We are a bureaucracy in danger.
We're watching an election where people are on the ballot openly advocating the end of bureaucracy.
That's what Republicans are doing, attacking bureaucracy, attempting to destroy bureaucracy, and they're doing it with glee.
This is the end of bureaucracy in America.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of bureaucracy?
Right. It's Democrats versus, as Bill Kristol says, the end of bureaucracy.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of bureaucracy as we know it.
I think our bureaucracy and the stability of that bureaucracy is really the thing on the ballot and really so important.
But let's get back to that clip from CNN for a moment, because there's more. The pundit over there said that Trump put them in that situation, thinking that he's coming after them. And to be honest, that's their faulty thinking on display. People have to be held accountable. Just take that recent FEMA story for example. As a part of their policy, they told FEMA employees to skip over houses that had Trump signs and just leave them for dead. We actually saw military officials lying about troop numbers. They were actively hiding critical information from the President of the United States. However, it's even more than that. Intel agencies framed him as a traitor with a bogus hoax. All of it, January 6th, the FBI persecuting rank and file members over their personal political ideology. Remember when DHS labeled anyone going against Democrat viewpoints as domestic terrorists? Yeah. They went after Catholics and parents at school board meetings too. They put Tulsi Gabbard on a no-fly list, multiple journalists too. There's honestly too many examples to go over. The government has been weaponized against its own citizens. And yes, people have to be fired. People have to be held accountable and prosecuted if there was a crime committed. We have to get rid of this rogue government and the two tiers of justice once and for all. We have no choice. However, we do have another example coming out of the Pentagon. As CNN has reported, unelected officials at the Pentagon are holding secret meetings to figure out ways to defy Trump's orders. Now, I don't know, I'm pretty sure there's a word for that. It rhymes with reason and starts with a T. But do you remember when General Milley made secret calls to China, promising to stab Trump in the back and give them a heads up? For some reason, he was never questioned, fired, or punished for his actions. And that's because the US military brass does not believe in accountability. So I guess it's not really that surprising that people at the Pentagon recently met to discuss ways they can override his agenda. And now they're doing exactly that, wargaming another coup. This sort of stuff has to end. And the only way to do that is via Trump's plan for mass firings and the creation of D.O.G.E, the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, it does seem to me that Pete Hegseth is the right guy to be Defense Secretary as well. He was recently on the Sean Ryan Show discussing and detailing his plan to get rid of corrosive ideologies within the military, to rebuild. And as of right now, at first I wasn't sure. But now, I'm starting to think he can do it. Anyway, he's a Harvard and Princeton grad, 20 years of service, combat experience, 2 Bronze Stars. He's deeply in tune with the active duty service members. I don't know, he seems like a pretty damn good pick.
So I spent the better part of a year and a half talking to vets. And not just vets, but connecting through a network of a lot of guys I know. I host my show on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in New York. So I've got Saturday afternoon wide open. And I spent, for months, my Saturdays just on the phone, off the record, anonymously with guys in service. So senior listed, junior junior officers, senior officers, all branches, MOSs, eras, but mostly guys in right now, generals, privates. And all the same themes came out. You know, standards are dropping. The woke stuff is everywhere. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. I heard that all the time, eggshells. I'm a commander, I walk on eggshells. I train commanders. They're walking on eggshells. They're afraid of one misstep on one identification or one gender thing or one racial thing or one trans thing. And the priorities are upside down on what the units are focusing on. And every single one of those distractions means we're less good at our job, which is supposed to be close with and destroy the enemy on behalf of our nation and bring our boys home. That's all I care about. That's what I want our military focused on. And so, yeah, I tell a few of my own stories in the book, but the book's not about me at all.
How do you think that this is happening?
Well, it's a long story. Well, I think it's because they're ideologues who want to bring a meritocracy to heel. That's where I think it starts. I think you have politicians who don't want to tolerate an institution. First, they want to use it to tinker. And then they also don't want to tolerate an institution that's antithetical to their social experiments. Because the military, you know, I mean, the book lays this out. Of course, like the integration of the military racially was a huge success. It was a huge success because black men and Hispanic men and others can perform just as well as white guys in any capacity that they're given. So the reality of life reinforced that the bigotry we saw on the outside should not be tolerated inside the military, and the military did a great job doing that. But now we're pushing boundaries on lots of different levels that are different than that because men and women are different. Because being transgendered in the military causes complications and differences. And the book kind of lays out the common arguments that those on the left or others make, which are baked in social justice. So it started, you know, you saw it under Clinton with the tinkering of Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the reasons for those changes. And I talked to some of the people involved in when that was changed. But it really started to accelerate under Obama. And you saw the trans stuff come at the end of the Obama administration. You saw the women in combat come at the end of the Obama administration. It's because they looked around at the bureaucracies that they controlled in Washington and the one that was that they didn't control. Obama spent a disproportionate amount of time focusing on the Pentagon. They were skeptical of leadership and eventually brought in political appointees and generals who would do their bidding the way they wanted, which, as you know, in a top-down organization, changes the ethos of the whole thing. So the book is meant to pull the whole curtain back, mostly from Obama forward, and explain how the army that I enlisted in, or that I swore an oath in 2001 and was commissioned in 2003, looks a lot different than the army of today because we're focused on a lot of the wrong things.
We will see. But establishment politicians and people on the left are not taking that appointment very well. And ironically, that right there makes me believe that it's actually going to work out. We need a complete change, not just more of the same. So with that said, let's take a look at his cabinet. First up, Kash Patel. This has not been announced as of right now, but I'm hoping he's going to head the FBI and just clean house. Big changes need to happen across the board. Matt Gaetz got the nod for Attorney General, and I think he's a good pick. He's going to have the stones to go after some of the biggest scandals and hold them accountable too. And then we have John Ratcliffe as CIA Director, and I don't know, that's a mixed bag. So Ratcliffe did help expose the Russia hoax back in the day, but he's also really into domestic spying, so that's not good. But here's the deal, he reports to the Director of National Intelligence, and yeah, that's Tulsi Gabbard, so pretty good. Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, not so good. But you know, I'm not going to trash it all because of a few positions I don't agree with. I'll take what we can get. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to reiterate this one more time. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We will never get another chance like this if the deep state or bureaucracy, whatever you want to call it, is able to survive the first 4 years. We'll never have real change at all at that point. In fact, next time these creatures get into power, they will consolidate power at such a rate that it's going to become practically impossible. You have to get rid of the corrupted rot in DC as quick as possible. Every moment that you're not doing that, they're building safeguards and insulating themselves, entrenching themselves deeper and deeper. We're at a moment that's going to define the next 100 years. Ron Paul, Elon Musk, Trump, and the rest of them, they have to move forward with this plan for government efficiency, getting a handle on government spending, tax overhauls, and hopefully ending the Fed. I doubt that's going to happen, but you know, a man can hope. RFK Jr. and his team have to gut special interest groups and the corruption within the health system, the FDA, the CDC, the revolving door with Big Pharma. All of that has to be taken care of as fast as possible if we have a chance for a prosperous and free future. But it doesn't stop there. We cannot have rhinos in hiding. No more war hawks, conservative ink cannot be involved. We have to turn the page. We're done with that, right? The goal is to realign the nation toward individual rights and liberty in drastic fashion. Coming up short of that ain't gonna cut it. And that brings us to this. The fight for Senate Majority Leader was really important. I'm pretty sure whoever's in that role dictates not only the rate of legislation, but decides what gets brought to the table. And unfortunately, I have some bad news. Swamp creature John Thune got the nod. He's a McConnell acolyte and buddy with Chuck Schumer. However, for now, he claims he's moving ahead with America First.
When it comes to choosing nominees who will pass Senate confirmation?
Well, as you know, the Senate has a advise and consent role under the Constitution, so we will do everything we can to process his noms quickly, get them installed in their position so they can begin to implement his agenda.
We'll see. We will see. Now, I don't know what the process is, but hopefully the very first moment that he doesn't come through on this agenda, he's replaced. And if that does happen, then I don't know. Perhaps they could exercise the John Adams option and just let J.D. Vance take care of it. It's an incredibly important role, and we cannot have any rhino establishment politicians jamming us up. You know, it's funny though, politicians have entirely forgotten what their role actually is. During this whole fiasco in the Senate, it was reported that McConnell and his acolytes felt bullied by citizens, and that's because they were demanding someone aligned with America First would get the spot. They even claimed, and I quote, "That's not how this works." And yeah, it is. Well, that's how it's supposed to work at least. You represent us. We don't elect you idiots into power, only to have you then ignore everything we want, so you can add some zeros to your bank accounts. You know, this is the exact problem with the political class. Now, I'm not saying that you should bully them, but also, yes, you should bully them. Get out there and bully a politician and do it for your nation, right? But these deep state hacks went to Politico and told them they were pissed off that an army of social media trolls were attacking them. An army of social media trolls, huh? I mean, these freaking idiots, man. Those are your constituents, your voters. That's who you're saying you don't want to hear from. You notice a pattern here? Yeah, same as before. They don't seem to understand that they represent our interests. They're not supposed to be there just to line their own pockets. And I'm ranting on this longer than I wanted to, but I don't know, it's frustrating. I'm glad Trump won, but we have to get these other people out of office. Anyone that thinks like that should not be anywhere near the levers of power. Anyway, these cabinet positions are really important. So far so good, for the most part. The main thing we have to avoid is what Mike Benz calls the Great Betrayal.
We've been here before. This is not our first rodeo with having Republican control over the House, the Senate, and the executive branch. This was 2016 to 2018, and Paul Ryan was made the speaker, and the censorship industry was constructed during that period. The FBI tortured the Trump administration during that period. There were mass defections from the Republican Party to pressure the executive branch to pursuing a blob agenda. The Trump transition team has to be intensely piercing in its vetting and in its concessions, secured from all personnel their commitments, their sworn commitments effectively, to not rerun the 2016 to 2018 period. We have a fresh shot at this point to be able to make positive change in the government. The last time that Trump had this sort of mandate, it was effectively squandered because of inside betrayals by the GOP. You could very easily see that happening again if Trump 2.0 is not wiser than he was before.
Now, I want to end on a good note, the death of legacy media. This one's important to me for many reasons, but during this election cycle, I almost spontaneously combusted from excessive propaganda intake multiple times. But get this, Kamala Harris spent $1.6 billion. Over $1 billion, and it didn't matter at all. Despite all that money, they were still outflanked by memes. All the propaganda from the media, the celebrity endorsements, the lies, the intel agencies putting their thumbs on the scale, and even people like Obama, it didn't matter. In fact, it hurt them. It just doesn't work anymore. Yeah, the legacy media is dead, and you survived a $1 billion propaganda campaign. So, congratulations on thinking for yourself. It's going to take a long time to phase out, but it's basically over. A new era has arrived, and I really couldn't be happier about it. You know, the fact that a large segment of the US population is entirely disconnected from reality should be concerning to pretty much everybody, and legacy media plays a major role in that. It's a weird mix of extreme vanity and narcissism, as they all, they try to one-up each other with deranged political commentary. They consistently reinforce the delusion too. On top of that, all these pundits have apologized to the youth, on air, which is deliberate messaging to induce anxiety about the future. They're deliberately trying to brainwash children into their delusion as well. It's all psychotic. So don't take the word of lunatics at face value. Question everything. As to swallow and follow, whether old doctrine or new propaganda, is a weakness still dominating the human mind? Well, don't give in to that weakness. Above all, think for yourself. So, as I said, up next I'll be covering the COP29 climate event. As you might know, if you've been around the channel for a while, I covered COP27 and 28 as well. But this one's going to be very, very interesting, and funny to be honest. The globalist reaction to the 2024 election will be something else entirely. Seething hatred is probably going to be a common theme. But alas, good days are ahead. Once again, this is HelioWave. If you like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video if you want to. If you're in a position to, consider subscribing on Locals, or you could use PayPal. As always, make sure you disobey those true fascistas, and yes, I do hope you have a good night.